The compound sat 3 miles outside New Spokane like a frontier fort from old Earth's western expansion. If that fort had been designed by paranoid military veterans with too much combat experience and a healthy retirement package from the Drydus Confederation. Phoenix, Fatso, Schmidt stood on the eastern wall at dawn, coffee in hand, watching the Polonia forest sway in the morning breeze. The trees his grandfather had planted 60 years ago now stretched toward the sky, their silvery bark catching the first light. Beautiful, profitable, and far enough from town that if something went wrong, really wrong, his family and his team's families would have time to react. Just in case. Behind him, the compound sprawled across 5 acres of cleared land. 5 houses arranged in a rough pentagon, each large enough for growing families. In the center, taking up most of the courtyard, sat their ship, the Harvest Moon, a modified Drydus military corvette they'd purchased with their earnings from the Kara cleanup operation 3 years back. "You're up early." Schmidt turned to find his wife, Maria, climbing the ladder to the wall walk. She handed him a fresh mug of coffee, the good stuff, imported from one of the core worlds, and settled him beside him. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted. "Got a message from Drydus High Command last night. They want the team for a job." Maria raised an eyebrow. She'd been a Drydus logistics officer before they'd married, so she understood what a job meant. "How bad?" "Barnett went dark 3 months ago. Ally world, for 100 million people. Some kind of internal uprising, but the details are sketchy. They want us to go in, assess the situation, and report back." "And the pay?" Schmidt smiled. This was why he'd married Maria. She always cut to the practical questions. Enough to finish the underground bunker and still have left over for college funds. "When do you leave?" "Briefings at 0900. If we take the job, we'd ship out tomorrow morning." Maria nodded, sipping her coffee. She didn't tell him to be careful, didn't ask him not to go. After 5 years of mercenary work and 8 years of marriage, she knew better. This was what they did, what they'd all chosen to do. The money was good, the work was meaningful, and the team was family. "I'll let the other wives know," she said. "We'll do dinner tonight, all the families. Last meal before deployment." "Sounds perfect." The briefing room was actually Gabriel Saxon's garage, converted into a tactical planning space 5 years ago when they'd officially formed their mercenary company, Timberwolves Security Solutions. The name was Jake's idea, a nod to their homeworld's primary export and their collective stubbornness. Schmidt arrived to find the rest of the team already assembled, coffee in hand, looking varying degrees of awake. Ellen Whitestone, at 25 the youngest of them, was somehow the most alert. She'd already pulled up the preliminary intelligence brief on the holographic projector Jake had built from salvaged Drydus military hardware. Her daughter, Sophie, would be turning 3 next month. Her husband, Jonas, taught engineering at the New Spokane Technical College. Benedict, name tag, Frank sat with his characteristic parade ground posture, reviewing the contract terms on his datapad. At 32, he was the team's steady hand, the one who made sure they actually got paid and that the contracts didn't have any nasty surprises buried in the fine print. His twin boys were 7, and his wife, Hannah, ran the compound's greenhouse operations. Gabriel Saxon was cleaning knives. Of course he was. At 34, he'd been doing mercenary work the longest, 2 years in Drydus service, then straight into private contracting. He had a daughter, age 9, and a son, age 6. His wife, Zara, was ex-Drydus intelligence and handled the team's background research. Jake T. Spencer, 36, and the team's senior member, was already sketching equipment loadouts on a digital pad. His 3 kids ranged from 10 to 5, and his wife, Catherine, was New Spokane's deputy mayor, which occasionally came in handy when they needed permits or bureaucratic assistance. Schmidt settled into his usual chair, reinforced, because normal furniture hated him, and activated the contract display. "All right, everyone's had a chance to review the preliminary brief. Thoughts?" "The money's good," Benedict said immediately. "Hazard pay is triple standard rate, which tells me Drydus High Command thinks this is riskier than they're letting on. The intelligence is thin," Ellen added, zooming in on the orbital scans of Barnett. 3 months of communications blackout, but they're still getting sporadic commercial traffic through? That doesn't track with a typical military coup. Gabriel set down his knife. "Zara spent last night digging into Barnett's political situation. Here's what's weird. There's no indication of any separatist movement before the blackout. No protests, no agitation, no economic collapse. Just business as usual. Then boom, radio silence." Jake looked up from his equipment list. "I pulled the planetary survey data. Barnett's got a population of 400 million spread across 3 continents. Major industries are chemical manufacturing, pharmaceutical production, and military contract work. They've got level 3 biocontainment facilities in the capital city. That made Schmidt's instincts prickle. Biocontainment facilities. Yeah. Jake met his eyes. Big ones. They do research contracts for Drydus Military Medical Corps. Vaccine development, disease treatment protocols, that kind of thing. Ellen leaned forward. Are we thinking bioweapon? Play. We're thinking we don't know enough, Schmidt said carefully. But triple hazard pay plus biocontainment facilities equals something Drydus High Command is very concerned about. The contract specifies reconnaissance and assessment only, Benedict noted. We're not being asked to engage hostile forces or attempt regime change. Just get in, figure out what's happening, and report back. Gabriel snorted. When has any mission ever stayed that simple? Never, Schmidt admitted. But we're being paid for reconnaissance, so that's what we planned for. Everything else is improvisation. He pulled up the mission timeline. The Drydus Navy has 3 capital ships en route to Barnett, but they won't arrive for 14 days. We're going in ahead of them using commercial cover. Our ship gets flagged as a cargo hauler bringing relief supplies, medical equipment, food, standard civilian aid package. Will they let us through the blockade? Ellen asked. Intelligence suggests they've been allowing humanitarian shipments through. We'll be running under the Harvest Moon's commercial registration, not military transponder codes. Jake was already nodding. I can rig our cargo hold to look legitimate. Medical supplies in the front, our actual gear hidden in false compartments. If they board us for inspection, they'll see what they expect to see. What about insertion? Gabriel asked. Even if we make orbit, getting down to the surface without raising alarms is tricky. We use the supplies as cover, Schmidt said. Land at one of the designated aid distribution points, offload the legitimate cargo, then disappear into the city. According to the intelligence brief, there's still a loyalist resistance operating in New Dunkirk, that's Barnett's capital. Senator Livia Marcellus is supposedly leading them. Benedict pulled up a file on Marcellus, former Drydus liaison, appointed to Barnett's Planetary Senate 15 years ago. She's the one who got the 47-second transmission out 3 days ago before it was jammed. Smart, connected, and motivated to see Barnett remain allied with Drydus. So we find her, link up with the resistance, figure out what's actually happening on the ground, and report back, Ellen summarized. Exactly. Schmidt looked at each of them in turn. This is a volunteer mission. Drydus is paying well, but it's also potentially very dangerous. We all have families now. If anyone wants to sit this one out, no judgment. Silence filled the garage. Then Gabriel picked up another knife and resumed cleaning it. I'm in. Zara's already wargaming contingencies. Catherine made me promise to be home for our son's birthday in 3 weeks, Jake said. So I guess we'd better make this quick. I'm in. Hannah's already planning the welcome home party, Benedict added. Count me in. Ellen smiled. Sophie needs new shoes. The expensive kind that actually fit. I'm in. Schmidt felt the familiar weight of command settle over his shoulders, heavier now than it had been during his Drydus service days, because now he was responsible not just for his team's lives, but for the families waiting at home. All right, we ship out at 0600 tomorrow. Jake, start prepping the Harvest Moon and rigging our cargo. Gabriel, work with Zara to compile everything we know about New Dunkirk's layout. Benedict, finalize the contract and set up our payment schedule. Ellen, medical supplies for 5 people, 2-week deployment, unknown biological hazards. And you? Ellen asked. I'm going to have dinner with my family and try not to think about biocontainment facilities going dark. The compound's central courtyard filled with the smell of grilled meat and the sound of children's laughter as the sun set over New Spokane. Maria had organized the dinner with military efficiency. Long tables set up in a rough square, enough food to feed an army, and all the kids running wild in that chaotic way that somehow never resulted in serious injuries. Schmidt stood at the grill, flipping steaks alongside Jake, while the others handled side dishes and drinks. This had become tradition over the last 5 years. Before every deployment, one last meal together, all the families united. You think this one's going to be bad? Jake asked quietly, his voice barely audible over the sizzling meat. Schmidt considered lying, then decided against it. Yeah, I think it's going to be bad. Me too. Jake flipped a steak with practiced precision. Catherine asked me last night if we should consider retiring. We've got enough saved up. The kids are getting older. Maybe it's time to just stop. What did you tell her? That I'd think about it. Jake paused. But the truth is, I don't know if I can stop. This is what we do. What we're good at. Schmidt understood that feeling intimately. The Drydus military had trained them, shaped them, turned them into weapons. And even though they'd put in their time and earned their discharges, the training didn't just switch off. They were soldiers, now and forever. One more job, Schmidt said. We go to Barnett, we figure out what's happening, we come home. Then we can all think about the future. Jake nodded. One more job. Later, after the food was gone and the kids were winding down, Schmidt found himself sitting with his son, Jefferson, on the compound wall. The boy was 6, all gangly limbs and boundless curiosity. Dad, why do you have to go away again? It was the question Schmidt dreaded most. Because there are people who need help, and me and the team are good at helping. But we need you here. Schmidt pulled his son close. I know, buddy. And I'll be back before you know it. 2 weeks, maybe 3 at most. Promise. Schmidt thought about biocontainment facilities and communications blackouts and the way Drydus High Command was willing to pay triple hazard rates for a simple reconnaissance mission. I promise I'll do everything I can to come home to you. It wasn't quite the promise his son wanted, but it was the only honest answer Schmidt could give. The Harvest Moon lifted off at 0600 exactly, her engines cutting bright contrails through New Spokane's dawn sky. Schmidt sat in the pilot's chair. Gabriel was the better pilot, but pre-flight was Schmidt's ritual, running through the final systems checks. Behind him, the rest of the team was stowing gear and securing cargo in practice silence. The compound fell away below them, 5 houses arranged in a pentagon, families gathered in the courtyard waving goodbye. Schmidt could pick out Maria and Jefferson, even from this altitude. Engines green. Gabriel called from the co-pilot station. Hyperspace drive charging. We're good for jump in 30 minutes. Copy that. Schmidt engaged the autopilot and let the ship climb toward orbit. Everyone, last chance to back out. Once we jump, we're committed. No one spoke. All right then. Schmidt pulled up the navigation plot for Barnett. Let's go see what's worth triple hazard pay. The Harvest Moon broke atmosphere, stars spreading across the viewports in familiar constellations. In 4 days, they'd arrive at Barnett. In 4 days, they'd discover that some mysteries were better left unsolved. But for now, they were just 5 soldiers from a timber world, heading out on one more job, confident in their skills and their bond. They had no idea that Barnett would change everything. The Harvest Moon jumped to hyperspace with a familiar shudder, and the mission began. The Harvest Moon lurched violently as it dropped out of hyperspace, alarms screaming across every console. What the hell? Gabriel's hands flew across the navigation controls, trying to stabilize their trajectory. We're 300,000 kilometers short of our planned exit point. Schmidt was already strapping into the command chair, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. Something yanked us out early. Reading massive gravitic distortions from defensive interdiction mines. Barnett's got their hyperspace denial grid active. That's not standard procedure for humanitarian traffic, Benedict said from the engineering station, his voice tight with concern. Those systems are only supposed to activate during a military incursion. Ellen pulled up the communications array. I'm broadcasting our humanitarian clearance codes and commercial registration on all standard frequencies. No response yet. The Harvest Moon shuddered again as her stabilizers fought against the residual hyperspace turbulence. Through the forward viewport, Barnett hung in the darkness, a blue-green marble that looked peaceful from this distance. Around it, Schmidt could see the glittering constellation of orbital defense platforms and patrol craft that made up the planet's protective net. Still no response to our hails, Ellen reported. Wait, I'm getting something. Automated beacon only. It's broadcasting approach vectors and safety protocols, but there's no live operator. Jake looked up from his damage assessment screen. Are they just running skeleton crews up here? Or no crews at all, Gabriel muttered, pulling up the tactical overlay. I'm counting 14 capital ships in orbital patrol patterns, plus twice that many support craft. But their movement is wrong. Too precise. Too predictable. Schmidt studied the display. Gabriel was right. The ships were moving in textbook patrol patterns, the kind taught at academy courses. No variation, no human unpredictability. Just cold, mathematical precision. They're running on automation, Schmidt said. The AIs are flying those ships. Where are the crews? Benedict asked, though the question hung in the air with an implied dread that no one wanted to voice. Broadcast this, Schmidt ordered Ellen. This is commercial vessel Harvest Moon, registry number Hotel Mike 7749er, carrying humanitarian relief supplies for Barnett. We are requesting approach clearance and orbital insertion vectors. Repeat, we are a civilian humanitarian vessel requesting. The proximity alarms shrieked. Contact, Gabriel snapped. 3 destroyers breaking formation, coming about to intercept. They're locking weapons. Schmidt's mind raced. 3 Drydus pattern destroyers against a modified corvette was no fight at all. Evasive maneuvers. Get us. The tactical display lit up with incoming fire. Plasma bolts lanced through space, brilliant streaks of superheated death that thankfully missed wide. They're firing in predictable patterns, Gabriel said, his voice gaining a slight edge of excitement. Standard intercept sequences, Protocol Delta 7. These are definitely AI-controlled. Can you evade? Schmidt asked. If they stick to textbook maneuvers? Yeah, I can dance with them all day. Gabriel's hands were already inputting commands. Engaging evasion protocol. Jake, I'm going to need you to route auxiliary power to maneuvering thrusters. Already on it, Jake called back. The Harvest Moon twisted and dove, her Drydus military-grade engines pushing her through evasive patterns that would have crushed a normal civilian crew under the G-forces. But Timberwolves weren't normal civilians. They'd all done their time in combat drops and high-speed orbital insertions. More plasma fire streaked past them, each salvo missing by meters as Gabriel threaded the needle between attack vectors. They're using Drydus tactical doctrine, Benedict observed, watching the pattern analysis on his screen. Version 12, maybe 13. That's at least 15 years out of date. Barnett uses old Drydus military AIs for their defense grid, Ellen said, pulling up the intelligence brief. Cost-saving measure. They bought surplus systems after the Meridian campaigns. Schmidt felt a plan forming, so we know exactly how they think. Gabriel, switch us to autopilot, defensive pattern Omega-4. Gabriel's hands hesitated over the controls. You want our AI to dodge their AI? Our AI is running Drydus military software version 22, Schmidt said. It knows every trick that version 12 can throw at us. Let the computers fight this one. Your funeral. Gabriel engaged the autopilot and leaned back, though his hands stayed poised over the manual override. Autopilot active. Evasion protocol Omega-4 engaged. The Harvest Moon immediately began a complex, three-dimensional spiral, her movements suddenly more fluid, more efficient. The incoming fire from the 3 destroyers seemed to slow, not in reality, but in effectiveness. Every shot landed exactly where the Harvest Moon had been a half-second earlier. It's working, Ellen breathed. They can't predict our movements because our AI is using tactical patterns their AI doesn't recognize. Won't last forever, Jake warned. Their systems will adapt eventually, start throwing random variations into the mix. Then let's make sure we're gone before. Schmidt's words cut off as new alerts blared across the console. Tractor beam, Gabriel shouted. Origin point on the planetary surface, main spaceport in. What the hell? They're pulling us toward Larouk. Larouk, the largest city on the planet. 32 million people spread across 100 square miles of urban sprawl. And according to the intelligence brief, an epicenter of whatever had gone wrong on Barnett. Can we break free? Schmidt asked. Jake was already running calculations. Not without blowing our engine seals. That's a military-grade tractor system. They've got us. The 3 destroyers that had been pursuing them suddenly broke off, returning to their patrol patterns as if the Harvest Moon had ceased to exist. They stopped firing once the tractor beam locked on, Benedict noted. Their orders must be to capture, not destroy. Fantastic, Gabriel deadpanned. I feel so much better about being dragged to our doom. The Harvest Moon descended through Barnett's atmosphere like a fish on a line, her engines fighting against the tractor beam's inexorable pull, but ultimately powerless to resist. Through the viewports, Larouk grew from a smudge on the horizon to a sprawling metropolis of glittering towers and arterial highways. But something was wrong. I'm not seeing any air traffic, Ellen said, her voice uncertain. A city of 32 million should have thousands of vehicles in the air. I'm seeing nothing. Schmidt leaned forward, studying the city as it rushed up to meet them. She was right. The airways were empty, and now that they were closer, he could see other details that sent ice through his veins. Fires burning in several districts, smoke rising in dozens of locations. Streets that should have been packed with vehicles sat empty or choked with abandoned cars. Something very bad happened here, he said quietly. The tractor beam guided them toward a landing platform on the outskirts of the main spaceport, a massive Duracrete pad easily large enough for vessels 10 times their size. As they descended the final 100 meters, Schmidt could see the platform was littered with debris. Shipping containers torn open, cargo scattered like a child's toys, and what looked like blasts scoring from weapons fire. The Harvest Moon settled onto the landing pad with a gentle thump, her landing gear absorbing the impact smoothly. The tractor beam released them immediately, leaving only the sound of their own idling engines. Silence filled the ship. "Well," Gabriel said eventually. "That was disturbing." "Everyone gear up," Schmidt ordered, unstrapping from his chair. "Full combat loadout. Jake, I want a damage assessment before we move. Benedict, see if you can raise anyone at all, on local frequencies. Ellen, prep emergency medical gear, contamination protocols. Gabriel, you're with me on perimeter security." The team moved with practiced efficiency, each person flowing to their tasks without hesitation. This was what 5 years of working together had built, a unit that functioned like a single organism, each member knowing their role intimately. Schmidt descended to the cargo bay and began donning his armor. The suit was Drydus military surplus, upgraded with civilian modifications that actually made it better than standard issue. Power-assisted joints, advanced sensor suite, and enough ceramic plating to stop anything short of a direct plasma hit. His rifle came next, the drum-fed monster chambered in a custom .45 caliber rifle round that felt like home in his hands. 200 rounds of precision death, ready to reach out and solve problems. His sidearm, a double-stack 1911, slid into its holster with familiar weight. Gabriel emerged from the armory looking like a walking arsenal. His plasma rifle was maglocked to his back, a heavy machine gun was slung across his chest, and Schmidt could count at least 20 knives distributed across his person, and those were just the visible ones. "Think we're bringing enough firepower?" Gabriel asked with a slight grin. "I think we have no idea what we're walking into," Schmidt replied. "So yes, bring everything." Jake appeared from engineering, his face grim. "We've got a problem." Those destroyers scored a few glancing hits during the approach. Nothing critical, but our thruster vectoring mechanisms took damage. "We can hover, we can land, but we can't achieve proper thrust angles for orbital insertion. Can you fix it, given time and parts?" "Yeah, but we need specific components, actuator assemblies, control modules, probably some new thrust nozzles. The kind of stuff we'd normally source from a proper shipyard." Schmidt processed that. Stranded on a planet where something had gone catastrophically wrong, with no way to leave until they could repair their ship. How long to fix it if we find the parts? 6 hours, maybe 8 if everything goes smoothly. Nothing ever goes smoothly. Plan for 12 hours minimum. Schmidt activated the team-wide comm. "Listen up. We're grounded until Jake can fix the thrusters." That means this just became a salvage operation on top of a reconnaissance mission. Benedict's voice crackled over the comm from the bridge. Still no response to any hails. "I'm picking up automated beacons from landing control, traffic management, emergency services, all running on script, no human operators. It's like everyone just vanished. Or died," Ellen added quietly over the channel. "I'm reading atmospheric composition as normal, no biological agents detected. Whatever happened here, it wasn't airborne." "Small mercies," Gabriel muttered. Schmidt maglocked his rifle to his armor's carry point and moved to the cargo ramp controls. "All right, wolves. We're going outside. Rules of engagement. We're here to observe and assess, not start a war. But if something tries to kill us, we kill it back harder. Ellen, you're on overwatch from the ship. Benedict, Jake, Gabriel, we're doing a perimeter sweep, 500-meter radius. Look for any signs of life, any clues about what happened here, and any shipyard facilities where we might scavenge parts." "And if we find hostiles?" Gabriel asked. "We find out what they know, preferably before we have to shoot them." The cargo ramp began to lower with a hydraulic hiss, revealing the landing pad beyond. Schmidt stepped forward, his rifle coming up to a ready position as the afternoon light of Barnett spilled into the cargo bay. The smell hit him first. Even through his armor's air filtration system, he could detect it. Something organic, something wrong. The kind of smell that spoke of meat left too long in the sun, of biological processes gone awry. "Anyone else getting that?" Benedict asked, his voice tight. "Yeah," Schmidt confirmed. "Smells like." He stopped at the bottom of the ramp and raised his visor, wanting to see the world with his own eyes rather than through sensor overlays. The smell intensified immediately, hitting him with physical force that made him gag. Death. The landing pad stretched before them, empty save for scattered debris and the dark stains that might have been old blood. Beyond the pad, the spaceport proper rose in the distance. Control towers, warehouses, docking bays, all standing silent and seemingly abandoned. And beyond that, the towers of Larouk proper stretched toward the sky, their windows dark, no lights, no movement. 32 million people lived in this city. Where were they? Boss, Gabriel said quietly, scanning the perimeter with his rifle. I'd almost rather be getting shot at right now. At least then we'd know where the enemy is. Schmidt couldn't disagree. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant creak of metal and the whisper of wind through empty streets. It was the silence of a tomb, of a place where life had been and was no more. Spread out, Schmidt ordered, his voice barely above a whisper despite the empty platform. Stay in visual contact. And everyone, keep your heads on a swivel. The 4 soldiers advanced across the landing pad, weapons ready, each footstep echoing in the unnatural quiet. Above them, Barnett's sun shone down with cheerful indifference, illuminating a world that had gone terribly, inexplicably wrong. And somewhere in the shadows of the silent city, something waited. The landing pad stretched out before them like a concrete wasteland, 200 meters of empty duracrete dotted with the detritus of civilization's collapse. Schmidt led his team in a standard diamond formation, weapons sweeping overlapping arcs as they advanced toward the nearest warehouse complex. The smell of death grew stronger with each step. Movement, Benedict said quietly, his voice tight over the comm. Warehouse 3, ground level. Multiple contacts. Schmidt's HUD highlighted the location, a massive structure 400 meters distant, its loading bay doors hanging open like a slack jaw. Through his rifle's scope, he could see shadows moving inside, jerky and uncoordinated. Could be survivors, Ellen offered from her overwatch position aboard the Harvest Moon. Could be, Schmidt agreed, though his instincts screamed otherwise. Let's find out. Advance by pairs. Gabriel, you're with me. Benedict, Jake, hold position and cover our approach. The 2 soldiers moved forward while their teammates took up firing positions behind a cluster of shipping containers. Schmidt's boots echoed against the duracrete, each footfall seeming unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. They were 50 meters from the warehouse when the first figure stumbled into view. Schmidt's finger tightened on his trigger as his mind tried to process what he was seeing. The figure had once been a man. You could tell by the remnants of a spaceport worker's coveralls. But now it was something else entirely. The skin had taken on a grayish-green pallor, mottled with patches of what looked like fungal growth. Its movements were spastic, jerky, as if the muscles were receiving conflicting signals from a damaged nervous system. And then it turned toward them, and Schmidt saw its eyes. They were clouded over, milky white with threads of black running through them like cracks in marble. The thing's mouth hung open, revealing teeth stained dark with old blood. A low, rattling moan emerged from its throat, a sound that was almost human, but not quite. Wrong in a way that made Schmidt's skin crawl. Contact, Gabriel barked. What the hell is that? More figures emerged from the warehouse, dozens of them, all with that same lurching, uncoordinated gait. They wore the remnants of civilian clothing, military uniforms, business attire. Men, women, young, old. All reduced to shambling mockeries of humanity. Fall back to defensive positions. Schmidt ordered, already backing away. Ellen, you seeing this? Confirmed. Ellen's voice was steady despite the horror on her screen. I'm reading. Christ, I'm reading vital signs. Weak, but present. Those things are still alive. Technically. The first wave of creatures began to accelerate, their moans rising in pitch and intensity. They moved with surprising speed despite their uncoordinated movements, arms outstretched, fingers grasping. Open fire, Schmidt commanded. His rifle roared to life, the drum magazine feeding rounds with mechanical precision. His first burst caught the lead creature center mass, 3 rounds punching through its chest. It staggered but didn't fall. Schmidt adjusted, put another 3 rounds into its head. The skull exploded in a spray of black ichor and gray matter, and the thing finally dropped. Headshots work, Schmidt called out. Aim for the... He stopped as the creature he'd just killed began to twitch. To his horror, it started to rise again, despite the catastrophic damage to its skull. The body moved with mechanical precision, as if controlled by something other than the destroyed brain. Negative on headshots, Gabriel shouted, his plasma rifle painting the warehouse entrance with superheated bolts. They're still moving. The team's weapons thundered in the afternoon air, creating a cacophony of death that echoed across the empty spaceport. Schmidt burned through half his drum magazine, watching in mounting horror as creatures that should have been dead, that any rational assessment said were dead, kept coming. Benedict's rifle cracked with metronomic precision, Each shot a headshot that should have been fatal. But the things kept advancing, kept reaching for them with grasping hands tipped with broken, blackened nails. "Shoot everything," Jake called out, switching to full automatic. "Legs, arms, torso. If they can't move, they can't reach us." Schmidt adjusted his aim, putting rounds into the legs of the advancing horde. Kneecaps shattered, femurs splintered, and finally, the creatures began to drop. Not dead, but immobilized, crawling forward with their arms while their ruined legs dragged uselessly behind them. "That's working," Benedict confirmed, dropping 3 more with methodical leg shots. Mobility kills. Gabriel's plasma rifle screeched, superheated bolts turning legs into charred stumps. The creatures collapsed, still moaning, still reaching, but no longer able to advance. The first wave broke against their defensive fire, 30 or 40 creatures reduced to crawling, writhing things that clawed at the Duracrete with single-minded determination. But more were coming. The warehouse seemed to be disgorging an endless stream of the damned. "Fall back to the ship," Schmidt ordered, fighting withdrawal, by the numbers. The team retreated in textbook fashion, alternating pairs providing covering fire while the others moved. Schmidt's rifle clicked empty, and he executed a speed reload that would have made his drill instructor proud, slamming a fresh drum home and charging the action without breaking stride. A creature lunged from behind a shipping container, moving faster than the others, fresher, less decayed. Its hands reached for Benedict's throat, teeth gnashing with audible clicks. Gabriel's knife appeared as if by magic, punching through the thing's eye socket and into whatever passed for its brain. The creature spasmed, but didn't stop. Gabriel twisted the blade, then drew one of his 1911s and put 3 rounds through its chest, then its spine, then both legs. It finally collapsed, still twitching. "These things don't quit," Gabriel snarled, kicking the body away. They made it back to the Harvest Moon's cargo ramp, the team forming a defensive semicircle while the horde advanced with implacable determination. There had to be 100 of them now, maybe more, spilling from warehouses and hangars across the spaceport like a tide of rotting flesh. "Ellen," Schmidt shouted. "We need options." "Working on it." Ellen's voice was strained. "Ship's defensive systems coming online. Stand by for." The Harvest Moon's point defense turrets swiveled with servo-driven precision, twin autocannons designed to swat incoming missiles now trained on ground targets. The guns roared, 20-millimeter rounds tearing into the advancing horde with devastating efficiency. Bodies, or what had been bodies, exploded under the sustained fire. Limbs separated from torsos, heads disintegrated, entire creatures reduced to component parts that twitched and writhed independently. The autocannons carved lanes through the horde, buying precious seconds. "Inside. Now," Schmidt commanded. The team scrambled up the cargo ramp, weapons still firing. Jake was the last aboard, putting a final burst into a creature that had gotten within arm's reach before he slammed his hand on the ramp control. The ramp sealed with a heavy thud, cutting off the moans and the smell of death. The sudden silence was almost as disturbing as the noise had been. For a long moment, no one spoke. They simply stood there, breathing hard, trying to process what they'd just experienced. "What?" Benedict said finally, his voice carefully controlled. "In the name of every god in the pantheon, were those things?" "They moved like people," Jake said, checking his rifle. "But no person takes 3 rounds to the chest and keeps coming." Gabriel was methodically wiping black ichor off his knives. "I put a blade through one's brain. Didn't even slow it down." Schmidt looked at his team, seeing his own horror reflected in their faces. "Ellen, I need answers. What are we dealing with?" "Give me 10 minutes, Ellen replied. "I managed to get biological samples from the ship's external sensors when those things got close. I'm running them through the medical suite now." "Make it 5, Schmidt said. "We need to know if we're dealing with a biological weapon, a plague, or something else entirely." The medical bay of the Harvest Moon had been designed for combat trauma, fixing gunshot wounds, treating burns, stabilizing shock. Ellen had modified it over the years, adding diagnostic equipment that could analyze everything from simple infections to complex toxins. Now she stood over a microscope display, watching something that made her skin crawl. "Boss," she called out over the comm, "you need to see this." Schmidt arrived to find her staring at the holographic projection of cellular structures that looked like something from a nightmare. Normal human cells were visible, but they were threaded through with something else. Dark, fibrous structures that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. "What am I looking at?" Schmidt asked. "The end of the world, maybe." Ellen zoomed in on one of the dark structures. This is what I pulled from the tissue samples. It's a hybrid, viral, bacterial, and fungal components all working together in a way I've never seen before. The viral component infects cells and rewrites their DNA. The bacterial component spreads the infection through the bloodstream. The fungal component, that's the really nasty part. It forms a secondary nervous system throughout the host's body. Schmidt felt his blood run cold. Secondary nervous system? The brain is just one control center, Ellen explained, pulling up another image. This thing creates multiple nodes throughout the body, in the major muscle groups, the spinal column, even the organs. That's why headshots don't work. You're not killing the organism because the organism isn't just in the brain anymore. It's everywhere. Can it spread through the air? I don't think so. The atmospheric samples are clean. It appears to be blood-borne, transmission through bites, scratches, direct fluid contact. She paused, her expression grim. But I wouldn't bet my life on that assessment. Not yet. Gene editing at its finest, she added, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She pulled off her gloves with sharp, angry movements. You know, I really wish people would do something more productive with their lives than figure out new ways of killing each other. Gabriel, who'd been listening from the doorway, laughed, a sound with no humor in it. He raised his rifle. Killing the old-fashioned way is plenty for me. This bioweapon stuff is just showing off. Jake appeared behind Gabriel, his engineer's mind already working the problem. The planet was home to laboratories that specialized in gain-of-function research and bioweapons. It was in the briefing. I'm willing to bet money and my left kidney that someone in one of those labs decided to play God and created this thing. And it got out, Benedict added grimly. Either by accident or on purpose, Schmidt finished. Either way, we're standing on a planet with 400 million infected. And we're stuck here until we can repair the ship. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. Everyone suits up, Schmidt ordered. Full armor, visors down, respirators active at all times. I don't care if Ellen says it's not airborne. We're not taking chances. From this moment forward, we treat this entire planet as a hot zone. The team gathered in the cargo bay, now fully armored with visors sealed and respirators filtering every breath. Through the external cameras, they could see the horde still pressing against the ship's hull, hands slapping against the metal with hollow thumps. We need those parts to fix the ship, Schmidt said, pulling up a map of the spaceport on the holographic display. According to the facility layout, there should be a shipyard maintenance depot 3 kilometers northwest of our position. If we can reach it, Jake should be able to find what we need. 3 kilometers through a city full of those things, Benedict observed. That's going to be interesting. We go in hard and fast, Schmidt said. Combat formation, no stopping, no unnecessary engagement. We get in, we get the parts, we get out. Questions? Yeah, Gabriel said. When this is over, can we agree to never take another job from Drydus High Command? Despite everything, that got a few grim chuckles. First we have to survive to complain about it, Jake pointed out. Schmidt checked his rifle one more time, making sure the fresh drum was properly seated. All right, wolves. We've faced hostile aliens, insurgents, and every flavor of bad guy the galaxy can throw at us. Today we're facing something new, something worse. But we're timber wolves, and we don't quit. Ave Drydus, Benedict said quietly. Ave Drydus, the others echoed. Schmidt looked at his team, his friends, his brothers and sisters in arms, the people he trusted more than anyone in the galaxy, save his own family. They were scared. He could see it in the subtle tension in their shoulders, hear it in the careful control of their voices. But they were ready. Ellen, you're staying with the ship. Keep the point defense active and monitor our progress. If things go south, you lift off and head for orbit. Like hell I'm leaving you, Ellen protested. That's an order, not a request, Schmidt said firmly. Someone needs to survive to tell Drydus what happened here. That's you. Ellen's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Understood. But you better come back, or Maria is going to kill me. Deal. Schmidt moved to the cargo ramp controls. On my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. The ramp dropped, and the timber wolves charged into hell. The horde was waiting. Schmidt's rifle thundered, the heavy .45 caliber rounds punching through rotted flesh and shattering bone. Beside him, Gabriel's plasma rifle painted the air with superheated death, while Benedict and Jake added their own fire to the devastating barrage. The key was mobility. Keep moving. Never let the horde surround them. Use their superior speed and coordination to stay ahead of the shambling masses. Schmidt had fought in enough urban combat scenarios to know the principles. Maintain situational awareness, conserve ammunition, never get trapped. They carved a path through the first wave, legs and spines their primary targets. The creatures fell, crawling after them with single-minded hunger, but unable to keep pace. A creature lunged from a shadowed alcove, faster than the others, recently turned, still possessing most of its living coordination. It crashed into Jake, bearing him to the ground with its weight. Benedict was there in an instant, his rifle's barrel pressed against the creature's spine. He fired once, twice, 3 times, severing the connection between brain and body. The thing went limp, and Jake shoved it aside with a disgusted grunt. "Thanks," Jake panted. "Buy me a beer when we get home," Benedict replied, already moving. They fought their way through the spaceport, every building seeming to disgorge more infected. The things emerged from hangars, from offices, from maintenance tunnels, an endless tide of former humanity now reduced to predatory hunger. Schmidt's drum magazine ran dry, and he transitioned to his sidearm without breaking stride, the 1911 barking with each precisely placed shot. Knee, spine, hip. Each round bought them another second, another meter of ground. Gabriel was in his element, moving with the fluid grace of a natural fighter. His knives flashed in the afternoon sun, hamstringing creatures that got too close before his rifle finished the job. He was singing, actually singing, some old battle hymn from the Drydus campaigns, his voice cheerful despite the carnage. "You're insane," Jake shouted over the gunfire. "Maybe," Gabriel laughed, "but I'm still alive." The shipyard depot loomed ahead, a squat structure of reinforced duracrete and steel. Its doors were sealed, the security systems still active despite the apocalypse outside. "Jake," Schmidt called, "can you crack it?" "Give me 30 seconds. Jake sprinted for the access panel, his engineering tools already in hand. "You've got 20, Schmidt replied, dropping another charging infected with a shot to its pelvis that shattered the bone and sent it sprawling. Benedict and Gabriel formed a defensive semicircle around Jake, their weapons creating an overlapping field of fire that nothing living or undead could penetrate. Bodies piled up, twitching and moaning, still trying to reach them even with catastrophic damage. 15 seconds, Schmidt warned, watching his ammunition counter drop into the red. Almost there. Jake's fingers flew across the panel. "Got it." The doors ground open with a shriek of protesting metal, revealing the dark interior of the depot. The team poured inside, and Jake slammed the emergency close button. The doors sealed shut just as the first wave of infected crashed against them, the duracrete walls muffling their moans to a distant, haunting chorus. Silence fell, broken only by the team's heavy breathing and the software of their armor's environmental systems. "Everyone intact?" Schmidt asked, conducting a quick visual inspection. "Intact and covered in things I don't want to think about," Gabriel replied, looking at the black ichor splattered across his armor. "We need those parts, and we need them fast," Schmidt said. "Jake, you know what we're looking for. Benedict, you're with him. Gabriel, you're with me. We secure the perimeter and make sure nothing followed us in." The depot was a cathedral to mechanical engineering, rows of shelves holding everything from engine components to life support systems, all cataloged and stored with the kind of obsessive organization that only military logistics could achieve. Jake moved through the space like a man possessed, pulling parts from bins with practiced efficiency. Thruster actuators, check. Control modules, check. Vectoring assemblies, need 2, found 3. We're good. "How long to install all this?" Schmidt asked. "If nothing goes wrong, 8 hours. If things go wrong," Jake shrugged. "Could be days." "We don't have days," Benedict pointed out. "That horde outside isn't going anywhere." "Then I guess nothing can go wrong," Jake said with forced cheerfulness. A sound echoed through the depot, a scraping, dragging noise that sent ice down Schmidt's spine. It was coming from deeper in the building, from the maintenance tunnels that connected to the spaceport's underground infrastructure. "We've got company," Gabriel said, his rifle coming up. From the darkness of the tunnel emerged a sight that would haunt Schmidt's nightmares for years to come. It had been a Drydus soldier once. You could tell by the tattered remains of the armor it wore. But the infection had transformed it into something worse than the shambling masses outside. This thing moved with purpose, with a horrible parody of its former training. It carried a rifle, though its rotted fingers could barely grip the weapon. Its armor was cracked and fouled, but still provided some protection. And its eyes, those clouded, black-threaded eyes, held a dim spark of something that might have been recognition. "Soldier class infected." Ellen's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm reading enhanced motor control, possible retention of muscle memory." This is bad, boss. The creature raised its rifle with jerky movements, the barrel swinging toward Schmidt. Gabriel was faster. His plasma rifle shrieked, the bolt taking the creature's legs out at the knees. It collapsed, but kept trying to aim, kept trying to fulfill whatever corrupted directive its infected nervous system still retained. Schmidt put 3 rounds through its spine, then its shoulders, then both arms. Finally, it stopped moving, reduced to a twitching torso that could do nothing but moan. There might be more, Benedict said, scanning the tunnel entrance. We need to move. Agreed, Schmidt said. Jake, pack up what we've got. We're leaving in 60 seconds whether we have everything or not. They loaded the parts into portable cases with practiced efficiency, their movements quick but controlled. Every second counted, every heartbeat another moment for the infected to find them. Time, Schmidt called. The team made for the exit, Jake and Benedict carrying the parts while Schmidt and Gabriel provided security. The doors opened onto a scene from hell. The horde had swelled to hundreds, maybe thousands, all pressing against each other in their eagerness to reach the depot. New plan, Schmidt said. We're not fighting through that. Gabriel, you still have those incendiary charges. Gabriel's grin was visible even through his visor. Never leave home without them. Set them for maximum dispersal. We're going to thin the herd. While Gabriel worked, Schmidt studied the terrain. The spaceport was dotted with fuel storage tanks, standard hydrogen tanks for ship refueling. If they could create a chain reaction. Change of plan, Schmidt said. Gabriel, target those fuel tanks. We're going to turn this spaceport into a bonfire. Now you're speaking my language, Gabriel replied, already adjusting his charges. They set the charges with careful precision, placing them at structural points that would maximize the explosion. The infected pressed closer, moaning their hunger, fingers scraping against the sealed doors. Charges set, Gabriel reported. Detonation in 30 seconds on my mark. Everyone back inside, seal the doors. We're going to ride this out. Schmidt keyed his comm. Ellen, we're about to light up the spaceport. You might want to activate the ship's shields. Already done, Ellen replied. Hurry back. I don't like being alone with my thoughts in this place. They retreated to the depot's most secure room, a reinforced bunker designed to survive anything short of a direct orbital strike. The doors sealed with heavy clunks, layers of duracrete and steel between them and what was about to happen. 5 seconds, Gabriel counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1 mark. The world turned to fire. The explosion was enormous, a rolling wave of superheated plasma that vaporized everything within a 100-meter radius. The fuel tanks ignited in sequence, each one adding to the conflagration until the entire spaceport was engulfed in flames that reached toward the sky like the fingers of an angry god. The bunker shook, dust raining from the ceiling, but held. The team braced themselves against the walls, riding out the shockwave like sailors in a storm. And then, slowly, the shaking subsided. Everyone alive? Schmidt asked. A chorus of affirmatives answered him. Let's see what we did, Benedict said, moving to the bunker's observation port. The spaceport was gone. Where buildings had stood, only smoking rubble remained. Where the horde had pressed against their doors, only charred remains scattered the scorched earth. The fires still burned, fed by spilled fuel and the dry, dead vegetation that surrounded the facility. Well, Jake said after a long moment. That's one way to clear a path. We need to move before the fire burns itself out and more infected show up, Schmidt ordered. Double time back to the ship. Stay sharp. Where there's hundreds, there might be thousands more. They emerged from the bunker into a world of ash and smoke, the heat intense even through their armor's climate control. The path back to the harvest moon was clear, the infected either destroyed or driven back by the inferno. They ran, boots crunching on still smoldering debris, the parts clanking in their cases. Behind them, LaRouche stretched silent and dark, 32 million souls either dead or damned. The harvest moon's cargo ramp was down, Ellen waiting at the top with her rifle ready. The team pounded up the ramp, and the moment Jake, last man in, cleared the threshold, Ellen slammed the close button. The ramp sealed, and for the first time in hours, they were safe. Schmidt collapsed against the bulkhead, his armor's systems venting excess heat with sharp hisses. Around him, his team did the same, each person lost in their own thoughts about what they'd witnessed. Jake, Schmidt said finally. How long to install those parts? Jake looked at the cases, then at Schmidt. Give me 12 hours. I'll have us ready to fly. You've got 10. Ellen, update Drydus High Command. Full report. Biological weapon, planetary infection, Estimated 400 million infected. Recommend immediate quarantine of the entire system. On it, Ellen said, already moving to the communications array. Schmidt looked at his team, his battered, exhausted, traumatized team. They'd come to Barnett expecting a simple reconnaissance mission. Instead, they'd found the end of the world. Get some rest, he ordered. Eat something. Check your gear. In 10 hours, we're leaving this hell behind and never coming back. What about the people still alive down there? Benedict asked. Senator Marcellus and the resistance? Schmidt thought about that, about the 47-second transmission, about loyalists hiding in the ruins of their civilization, waiting for rescue that would never come. If they're still alive, they're already dead, he said quietly. We can't save them. The best we can do is make sure this doesn't spread beyond Barnett. He stood, shrugging off the weight of command for a moment. I'm going to call Maria. Tell her I love her. Tell Jefferson I'm coming home. I suggest you all do the same. The team dispersed, each person seeking their own small comfort in the face of cosmic horror. Schmidt made his way to the communications room, where Ellen was already transmitting their report into the void. On the view screen, Barnett's surface scrolled past, cities dark, fires burning, a world transformed into a graveyard in the span of 3 months. And somewhere in that graveyard, 400 million infected waited. The longest night had only just begun.
Many thanks to channel member and Pathfinder Caroline Lajoie for making this video possible. And thank you to all my other channel members and Pathfinders as well. You all keep this channel going. If you'd like to become a member, please be sure to do so and gain access to some awesome exclusive perks. Everyone else, thank you for listening to this story, and I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to see more videos like this, and be sure to leave this video a like, too. Channel memberships, super thanks, merch purchases, and even book purchases, our links to our books are in the description section below, are a great way to keep this channel going, and they help us afford to make better videos too. Partner with us as we grow into one of the best sci-fi channels on YouTube and beyond. With all of that said, thank you again for listening to this story, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for your time, and be sure to check out the story and playlist on the left side of your screen now. I'll see you in the next one.